We are here with Mickey Dubs, or another Alt YEG interview.
How's it going?
Oh,
I'm
great,
glad to be
great.
here.
Oh, thanks for coming. So maybe tell us a little bit about you. What inspired you to start making music out here in Edmonton?
Um, Music has run in my family for a long time. Well, I shouldn't say that. But music started with my grandfather. So back in the early '90s, before he passed away in 2001, he would spend every evening listening to cassettes of like the old classics, so like Bach, Handel, Mozart, Beethoven, all the big guys from back then. And then eventually, when he passed away, it just felt very ambient, very, it gave a very melancholic sense that we didn't hear that music anymore. So my parents ended up getting me a keyboard by Casio when I was like 6 or 7 years old. And I started to learn off of that. Now, the cool thing is, even today, I don't know how to read actual sheet music. Everything was either guides, because with those digital keyboards, they show you where to place your fingers,
Yeah.
what notes to press, and everything. Or it was learned by ear. So I would listen to a song and I would just, press random keys until I figured out what key it was in. It's the key of C sharp, G major, yada yada yada, and so forth. And that's how I learned to do a lot of music. And then further on, let's jump to 2012, 2013, I eventually wanted to switch over from piano to guitar. Now, guitar being an entire different algorithm, so to speak, of how to play music, what I started doing to learn how to play guitar beyond just trying to look at where the individual notes were on a guitar, I would translate notes from a piano onto the guitar. So let's say I liked how something sounded on piano, I would then go individually hunt each note on the guitar to play
Uh,
that. And then that's how I started learning how to do chords on guitars and everything. And then I would jump between the two, where I would do some stuff on piano to guitar and then guitar to piano. And then that's how I started making some of my early beats when I got into MIDIs and everything.
oh, awesome. So yeah, I was gonna say those instruments probably influence your music now quite a bit, eh? Um,
Yeah, it definitely does. A lot of influences come from kind of what people listen to around me. I grew up with a lot of classic rock. So there's the Deep Purple, there's the Led Zeppelins and everything. So a lot of my music you will hear, whether I sample it or manifest it organically, will have like guitars, or some of the drums that I use will sound more like rock drums or jazz drums, less than the digitally produced drums like 808s and whatever. Or I'll meld multiple elements together to kind of have a cool genre.
what drew you to hip hop?
Pardon?
What drew you to hip hop?
It was something different. It was I ended up coming on because my parents were never huge into rap or whatever, and because of a lot of the topics and sensitive subjects that they highlighted, especially with having young kids in the house, i.e., being my sister who was 5 years my junior, we were very particular about what was being played in the house. But one summer, when my dad bootlegged the Rolling Stones 500 top hits from back in the day when a torrent bit was still a thing, some of the songs that made the Rolling Stones 500 greatest hits of all time, two of them were by Eminem,
Oh, awesome.
being "Lose Yourself" and Stan. Yeah, "Lose Yourself," Stan. Nothing But a G Thing by Snoop Dogg was also on that list, and it was just I started listening to it. I'm like, this is different. And it was easy to follow because of like how it was structured. Some of these songs, and just the lyrical development was different than what some of these classic rock artists did.
Awesome. You describe your music as being for the broken, lovers, and achievers. Can you expand on that?
Ilium, my engineer, who's
Oh
part
yeah,
of, we're part of the small collective group called Whole Heart Entertainment. There's about
great
four
guy.
or
Yeah.
five of us. Yeah, okay, so you've
Yeah,
met
yeah.
him a few times or whatever. Um, he tells me numerous times that I don't write rap.
Hmm.
I write poetry over music because of the context that I talk about, the way that I word it. It doesn't always fit the hip hop rap demographics in terms of how I go about things. I write a lot of poetic stuff, talking about, let's say, breakups, talking about hardships in relationships, talking about finding new love. Um, and I write music that I try to give voice to people who don't have any, something they can turn on and be like, hey, I'm currently going through this right now. This guy gets what I'm trying to say. Because I'm not materialistic when it comes to my music. I don't talk about getting money. I don't talk about, how many women I can shove in my car at one time or whatever. And if I do, it's in satire just because it was either appropriate for the context of that song that I'm going on or whatever. But for the main gist of it, I try to write organic, wholesome stuff. Hence why part of our label is called Whole Heart. It's not called Get Money Entertainment,
Yeah.
So
Awesome. What's your process? Do you start with lyrics, the beats, or just kind of go off a vibe?
it varies. I've started with beats. Let's say there's a sample that I hear that I like. I'll make a whole beat out of it. And sometimes that beat will sit for months, even over a year. And then one day I'll just wake up and be like, yes, that's what I want to write about. But then there's other times where I will have a song idea in my head where I'm like, okay, this is what I want to write about. And then I'll start putting out the lyrics, make the music, and then I'll brush up the lyrics based on how I orchestrated the beat.
Oh, awesome. What message or messages do you want your listeners to take away from your music?
In terms of like from the music or from me, doing what I do.
I guess from the music, like if someone is listening to it fresh, what's the kind of vibe that you'd want them to feel?
As I said earlier, I want to write music that people can align with or whatever. I don't like writing off the chart stuff. I write silly stuff just because I've got a goofy personality, but I don't write about extreme stuff that would portray me to be something that I'm not. And again, if I do, it's in good satire. I guess the bottom line is anyone can write music. I started back in grade 8 where I would just basically take songs that are already there and just rewrite them. And going back to my whole love of poetry and everything, I decided to put that to my musical aptitude that I developed in my early years. So no, absolutely, anyone can write music. And don't be discouraged if you have 1 listener or 1 million listeners. The point is knowing that you have views, period, means you're reaching out to somebody somewhere, whether it's here, whether it's in Asia, and don't be discouraged. Just keep doing what you're doing, and eventually you'll end up, the more music that you write, you'll end up figuring out where you situate yourself in terms of, hey, what kind of groups do I fit in? Because there will be sometimes you'll make stuff that you'll try to present to somebody or a group, and they won't like it because it just doesn't fit what their virtues or what their values are. But other times you can submit something and be like, yes, this is absolutely what we're on the hunt for.
Oh, awesome. So you have a show coming up on the 12th here. You've had a couple before, though. What do you think about performing in Edmonton?
Edmonton is definitely a good place to get your foot in the door or whatever for performing. The first time that I performed was actually at the Rendezvous Pub a few years ago. That was an experience and a half because that was the first time that I had worked up the nerve to perform my own songs, not at a karaoke bar where somebody else is. I'm usually a people person. I've never had problems or issues public speaking, so I'm used to being in front of people, whether it was like a classroom presentation. But it was a different element when it was performing your own songs. All of a sudden, you realize that your accountability changes. The music's playing, and you know that, hey, I got to hit these lyrics. I got to hit them on time or whatever, because as soon as you get sidetracked, people start to notice. But I like doing theater stuff or whatever. So for me, it was beyond just a performance. It was like a whole act. I like to get the crowd involved. I like to make everyone feel like it's an experience, because I've said this numerous times, artists who go up to perform their set list and just walk away, why am I paying to see you? You know,
exactly.
why can't, what's stopping me from listening to you on Spotify, SoundCloud, or whatever your music platforms are, that I could have stayed home and put onto my Bluetooth speaker? So when I'm on stage, I like to get everyone involved as much as I can. I like to make people feel like they're there as part of the act. Because again, if you came to watch me do my songs, whatever, for like 15, 20 minutes and just walk away, you know, how do you do? Why did you bother to come watch me? So I always like being in part, you know, like when other artists would pull people on the stage, like in the big venues or whatever, when other artists would pull people on the stage or whatever, or just make personal experiences that give people something to remember, to take away, something to make that performance above the rest.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. How's Smiley's? Have you played there before? I've seen a couple shows.
Smiley's is home away from home. The bartender, Tash, she's great. I've known her for ages or whatever. And that's where actually Whole Heart had their first headliner show.
Awesome.
So we've just become really close with the bartender. The staff is fantastic or whatever. And it's in a convenient location where it's not overly busy. You know, it's just a very wholesome, warm-hearted place to be at. And I never feel alien being there. And the bartender,
great.
she always encourages us to come back. Like whenever we say, hey, we want to have a show, first thing, come back to Smiley's, please.
Oh, awesome.
So we bring people, we get her drinks or whatever, and it's a fantastic time, and it's just everyone loves being there.
Awesome. Anyone in particular you enjoy sharing the stage with?
Honestly, I mean, I don't mean to keep promoting the label, but Iliam is definitely, he's been my best friend since grade 10, actually.
Oh, wow.
We became
Awesome.
friends when we went to school in St. Albert at the old Polcane.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the old Polcane, not the big, massive, multi-mega mall that they have now there.
Yeah.
But we ended up bonding over rap when I was starting to get into Eminem or whatever. Liam was light years ahead of me down the hip-hop game or whatever. But he just saw me talking in the hallway one day to somebody, and he's like, wait, you like Eminem too? Oh, I like Eminem as well. And yeah, that was the start of that was back in 2012. So he and I have been like bonded for over a decade now, and you know, he's one of the few people that would put in my organ donor list.
Awesome. Where do you see yourself coming up the next couple of years? See yourself up to?
Right now, music's kind of a hobbyist thing or whatever, because I'm trying to balance a full-time job or whatever, you know, relationships and everything else. But eventually what I want to do is use my music to put towards the greater good. I'm not in music to get the most money. I'm not in music to have the biggest house, you know, like how Tekashi 6ix9ine or whatever is going around showing stacks or whatever. No, that's, like I said, I'm very wholesome and down to earth about that. That's not what I want. I want to do stuff more like what Jelly Roll does. Yes, he's a country artist, but how he fights for rights, how he helps, how he goes out of his way to help other people or whatever. He's a huge inspiration in terms of kind of what I want to do, actually. Like, I have one song that I haven't officially released because there's samples in it that I could, you know, get in trouble for or whatever because it's copyright, blah, blah, blah. But one of my favorite songs that I've written is called 525,600 Minutes, which samples the song Seasons of Love from the 90s movie Rent, if you know what that is.
Yeah.
So, which I will actually be performing as part of my set list on the show for December 12th. But in it, it just talks about loving one another, being appreciative of being alive. You know, you've only got one life on the earth, and yes, times suck at times, but going forward and trying to make the most of opportunities delegated to you, you know, not just sitting back waiting for stuff to happen. It's going out there, making every day count.
Yeah.
You know, and what I want to do with that song is I actually want to make like a music video showcasing Edmonton. you know, showcasing like helping the homeless, whether it's at a feeding shelter or just on the streets, and just beautiful organic concepts like a new baby being born in a hospital or whatever, and just tying the community together and just showing that there is still love in these very rough times.
Awesome. Any advice you'd have for somebody just coming up?
The advice would vary depending on how much musical experience you've had. Like if you've never played an instrument in your life, I would say do some study, do some research, and figure if the musical theory comprehension is something that you can get your head around, because it's a very intricate process. You can't just slap a couple of notes together, slap drums on it, and be like, there you go. Although some music nowadays sounds like that. It's one of those things you either have a knack for it or you don't. But people just starting out, start simple. You don't need to get the $2,000 monitors. You don't need the $2,000 MIDI controller or whatever. I started out with an old crappy Dell laptop.
Yeah.
And I had, I think, like an Apex 540 mic that I got. Everything was secondhand. I didn't buy anything brand new. All my equipment when I started out was either from Marketplace, Kijiji, or some secondhand place. Even today, all my stuff is secondhand. Actually, no, my monitors, my Mackie CR3s, I even got on like 50% off from Amazon. So no, I don't, I'm not about having the big fanciest technology. At a point, you do need to upgrade though. But for starting out, when you're just learning the roots and everything, just start simple. And in terms of like DAWs, so like the operating machine or the operating program that you use to like piece your music together, I would highly recommend Ableton. It is very simple. It is this, in terms of functions, in terms of layouts and everything. And then if you want to get into something like FL Studios, Studio One, or whatever else, definitely jump into that if that's something you choose to do. Heck, I think Marshmallow and Charlie Puth, they're Ableton users or whatever, and that's what they live on to this day.
Sweet. Awesome. Anything else you'd want to add? Any shout outs?
Yeah, I'd like to give you a shout out for having me, because we've been following each other for quite some time. So I feel honored that I finally get the opportunity to sit down with you and have a conversation or whatever. And you know, I'm thankful that you're going to be coming out to the show. I'd like to give a shout out to Whole Heart, which is beyond just artists, a part of the same label. They are basically my family. These are guys I've known for over 10 years. Twig, who's another member of Whole Heart, he and I go back as far as second grade to Robert Rundle back in St. Albert, and then some of the background characters who don't perform but they are still part of the family, like Langston. We go back to like grade 9 and whatever. So there's just a whole family lineage or whatever. I'd like to give a shout out to my girlfriend, because she's been my backbone of support, constantly promoting shows, trying to help me sell tickets or whatever. And then whenever she's at all my shows or whatever, she's always there, you know, cheering me on, whether she's at the bar getting a drink, whether she's up front taking pictures. She's been definitely my #1 fan.
Awesome. Well, thanks again so much for coming on. Awesome. And so we'll check out your show, Smiley's, December 12th.
Yep, there's a cipher at 8 p.m. and then the show kicks off at 9. And I've got something really special because I'm going to be the one closing the show.
Oh,
I already called dibs on that I want to be the last performer of the night, because I've got something that no one's going to be prepared for. So if you guys come and you end up leaving early, the loss is on you. That's all I can say.
Awesome. Sounds great. There we go. Sweet. Got yours there. That was great.
I hate doing interviews because I always feel like an idiot when I mumble or just say too
No,
many times.
it was